if you remember, we finished up chapter 21 of the book of Numbers. And if you had remembered, they had went around Edom. They came into the land of the Amorites. Sihon, king of the Amorites, tried pulling the same thing Edom did and said, you can't come out. And they brought their army to the border, and Edom was protected by God, but the Amorites were not. And so Moses went out and had the armies go out, and they killed off the Amorites in that area. Then they hit a small town. What was it called? Jazer, I believe. Yeah, Jazer. Whenever they were there, they sent spies out, looked at Jazer, and went, you know what, we'll take that territory too. So they killed off and drove out those Amorites. And then Og, king of Bashan, they started moving a little bit more towards the promised land again. And Og, king of Bashan, also said, well, we're going to attack you too. So they came against Israel, and Israel killed them off. And Israel started possessing the land as opposed to leaving the land. So this was a big change. So if you remember, this was right around the mountain of Pisgah. And so that's where they're at geographically. And so we start in Numbers chapter 22, and it says in verse 1, then the children of Israel moved and camped in the plains of Moab on the side of the Jordan across from Jericho. So they've moved around the Mount Pisgah, and now they're sitting there. Basically, the Dead Sea is off to their left. They're on the east side of Jericho, east side of Jordan, across from Jericho, which is the plains of Moab. And so we have in verse 2, it says, now Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was sick with dread because of the children of Israel. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this company will lick up everything around us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. The Moabites were scared to death. The wording in here in the original language gives the idea that they were literally shaking with fear and could not control their bodies because they were so scared. Because they looked out, and I love that it says this, because the people were many. Remember, people have problems with the numbers that are recorded in the book of Numbers. They're saying, oh, they're multiplied by 10 just to give exaggeration. The Bible doesn't exaggerate that way. The Bible tells the truth. Either it tells the truth or it doesn't tell the truth. And so that's where we're at. And I believe that there were around 1.2 million people. And so Moab was scared to death. They said, look how many people there are. And look what they did to the people who defeated us, the Amorites. Because the Amorites had taken the area that Israel just took away from them. They had taken it from Moab. And so Israel just came in and took care of it. And so they're scared to death. They're wondering. And I love the elders of Moab say to the elders of Midian. Now, they were allies here. They said, this company will lick up everything around us like an ox licks up the grass of the field. In other words, we're not going to be able to stand any more than the grass can defend against an ox. I mean, that's pretty scared. That's pretty blatant on how powerless they felt. And it says that, and Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. Verse 5. Then he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river of the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth, and they are settling next to me. Therefore, please come at once, curse this people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Balaam, because in my opinion, he is one of the most interesting characters in the Bible. He's a prophet, but he's not a prophet of God. It's interesting because we've there are historical accounts on who Balaam was other than the Bible. He was a very well-known, internationally known witch doctor. He was known in several different nations in the near Middle East. They have his writings that were carved into walls because he was accurate in the prophecies that he made. And as Balak says, he whom you curse is cursed. He whom you bless is blessed. He was obviously in touch with some spiritual forces. And he was well known. And so Midian and Moab got together and they say, what are we going to do? We can't defeat this many people. Look at them. There's over 1 million people down there. Say, what are we going to do? And one of them pops up and says, I know what we can do. You remember that over there's a guy named Balaam. And everyone whom he curses is cursed. Everyone whom he blesses is blessed. We need to get him, and we can't fight them physically. We need to take away their spiritual blessing. That way we can defeat them physically. That's their idea. And they go to Balaam, this prophet. And it's amazing because he was more than likely, what is it called? He was a sorcerer. He was a doer sorcerer, and he specialized in prophesying the will of the gods by watching natural occurrences, by watching the movement of animals, and examining the entrails of animals. This was common practice back then, but Balaam was known for being very, very accurate watching these things. So he would watch the flight of birds, and they say, oh, they went this way, so this is what you know that the gods are trying to tell us. Oh, the herds, they went that way. This is what the gods are trying to tell us. He was very well known for it. He was very accurate. So they called him, and they said, come, curse this people from me. They fill the whole land. And they're settling right next to me, Balak says. It says in verse 7, so the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the diviner's fee in their hand, and they came to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak. And he said to them, lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. So they get to Balaam. They said, Balak says, come to us. They're covering the face of the earth. They're going to destroy us all. Come curse them because I know you're powerful. And he says, stay the night. I've got to talk to my spiritual forces here. And whatever they tell me, I'll come and let you know. Isn't it interesting that he consults before he even agrees to go? So they stay that night. And that night, it says in verse 9, then God came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? I think this was a new one for Balaam. I think it was new in the fact that it was God as opposed to some demon. See, according to the New Testament, all the idols and the false gods that people worshipped are actually demons. So I think he was in communication with these demons, and whenever they were doing the things that he was saying, that made him popular and that made him well known. But now God comes to him and he says, who are these men with you? And Balaam doesn't bat an eye because he's used to talking to spiritual things, spiritual entities. And so he says to God in verse 10, he says, so Balaam said to God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, said to me, saying, look, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth. Come now, curse them for me. Perhaps I will be able to overpower them and drive them out. So he has no problem talking. He doesn't realize who he's talking to, though. And in verse 12 it says, and God said to Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse this people, for they are blessed. So he gives them a very clear, and in verse 13 it says, so Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to give me permission to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. So God comes. All Balaam knows is a spiritual force suddenly comes in and says, don't go with them. You can't curse this people. They're blessed. Balaam's already rich. He's already got his fame. And so he goes out to him and says, yeah, I'm not going. The spirits have told me, God has told me not to go with you. He's refused to give me permission. Bye-bye. And so they go. They travel all the way back to Moab. They come to the king and they say, yeah, Balak's not coming. We don't know if they expounded on that or not, but it sounds like they just kind of went up and went, yeah, that's not happening. You got to figure something else out. And so Balak, in verse 15, it says, then Balak sent princes more numerous and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam and said to him, thus says Balak the son of Zippor, please let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will certainly honor you greatly, and I will do whatever you say to me. Therefore, please come, curse this people for me. So Balak thinks Balaam is playing the game. He says, well, he didn't come because I didn't honor him with the highest princes, and there weren't enough of them. So what I'll do is I'll get my second in command, I'll get my really high level officials, and I will send them to him. And I'll do twice as many. We'll send them all, right? And they all come and they say, come, let nothing hinder you from coming. I will honor you greatly. In other words, I'm going to pay you double fees, I'm really going to help you out here. Financially, you're going to be set. Just come do this for me. Right? And he says, I will do whatever you say to me. But come, curse this people. And look at Balaam's response. I love Balaam's steadfastness. He's a pagan. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't a good guy. But I love his steadfastness because he tells them in verse 18, then Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now therefore, please you also stay here tonight, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me. Now, whenever he says, my God, he does not say Jehovah there. He uses the general term God. So he may have been talking about God, but he may not have been talking about God. It's not like when the Israelites say, the Lord my God. And he says, that I may know what he'll say to me. And in verse 20, they stay the night, of course, same story as last time. They stay the night. And in verse 20 it says, and God came to Balaam and said to him, if the men come to call you, rise and go with them. But only the word which I speak to you, that you shall do. So Balaam rose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. So Balaam at this thing, I believe, is thinking, God's given me permission. I'm going to get to go, and I'm going to get to curse this people. Because that's, first he said don't go and don't curse. But now he's saying I can go, so obviously I should be able to curse, right? And so he's probably going, okay, we're on track. I don't know what changed. Maybe this spirit needed those extra princes. I don't know. But he gave me permission. So he gets up early in the morning. He saddles his donkey. He gets his servants, and he says, we're on our way. And in verse 22 says, then God's anger was aroused because he went. And the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. And he was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. Now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. So Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back onto the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards, with a wall on this side and a wall on that side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed herself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. So Balaam's anger was aroused, and he struck the donkey with his staff. So just imagine what's going on, okay? We know, we have the backstory. We have the understanding that God was not happy with Balaam. And so he's going along, and he sends the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord is standing there in the way. The donkey sees. Balaam does not. The donkey says, no, I ain't going that way, and goes off into the field. No problem. Balaam's like, what's the matter with you? Whack! Get back on the road! Whack! Donkey probably understands what's going on, still sees that angel, and goes around him and gets back on the road. Just had to take a detour through the field. Then he stands between two vineyards. The angel of the Lord comes in another place in the road, stands between two vineyards. There's a wall on this side, and there's a wall on that side. The donkey says, I'm still not going through that angel. And donkey goes, maybe I can still go around him. And pushes up against the wall real hard. Well, it crushes Balaam's foot. And Balaam's mad, and he hits her again. What is wrong with you? Whack, whack, whack. Get back on the road. So the donkey gets back on the road. They pass him. They go along. Then, angel of the Lord says, okay, let's see what happens now. He stands in a place where there was nowhere to go. Right hand or left. We don't know if it was maybe they were on a hill and those were two drop-offs. We don't know. But the donkey saw it, looked that way, said there's no way to go that way. Looked that way, said there's no way to go that way. I ain't going anywhere. And so she sits down underneath Balaam. Balaam gets ticked off, gets his staff, pulls the staff out from its holding place, because I'm sure he's not riding with his staff. Pulls it out from the saddle, and what's the matter with you, donkey? Right? Ticked off. And in verse 28, the most amazing thing happens. It says, then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, because you have abused me. I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. So the donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey on which you have ridden ever since I became yours to this day? Was I ever disposed to do this to you? And he said, no. I love this because remember what Balaam is known for. He's known for knowing the will of the gods by the way the animals move. Here's the donkey refusing to go on the road because she sees the angel. And Balaam keeps hitting her instead of going, you know, I can interpret this if I wanted to, but instead, I just want to get to my destination. And he's not getting it. And so he's beating the donkey. All of a sudden, the donkey speaks. And Balaam doesn't bat an eye. She says, what have I done that you've struck me these 3 times? Why are you hitting me? And he says, because you're abusing me. You're hurting me. You sat down under me. You crushed my foot. I wish I had a sword. I would kill you. And she goes, am I not your donkey which you have ridden every day since you got me? Every day? Have I ever done anything like this to you? In other words, open your eyes and interpret, do what you're famous for, and interpret what I'm doing. Have I ever done this to you before? And he says, no. And then in verse 31 it says, then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed his head and fell flat on his face. He jumped off of that donkey when he saw the angel. Fell flat on his face before the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely I would also have killed you by now and let her live. You're talking about stabbing her with a sword. I would have stabbed you with a sword if she had not done what she did. It says, why are you striking the donkey? And God is almost proving to Balaam, you really don't know what you're doing. You're trying to interpret the will of the gods, but you're not even you don't even know the real God. You're interpreting the will of demons because of what they're doing, and they're talking to you. But if you really were interpreting the movement of animals, you would have noticed that your donkey kept turning away. And instead of getting mad at her, you would have realized something's wrong. Kind of proving how stupid Balaam really is for following the wrong influences. And in verse 34 it says, "And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displeases you, I will turn back." Balaam still has no problem staying at home. But he knows Balak will continue to call him until he shows up. And this is his profession. This is a job. This is how he makes his living. I'm sure he has no problem going to the king because he knows he's going to get a good payment for that. That's going to be a fat check, right? And so he's like, but he's like, I've messed up because I struck the donkey and I messed up. I didn't know you were standing there. I admit that I have missed the signs of this animal. He says, if you want, I'll go back home. I'll go back home. I don't care. Verse 35 says, "And the angels of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but only the word that I speak to you, that you shall speak." So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. I think this whole situation was to wake up Balaam first, that he really couldn't interpret what animals were doing. And second, because Balaam believed that he was going to be allowed to curse Israel. Because this is the second time God said, only what I tell you. Only what I tell you. The angel of the Lord really drove it home because Balaam was about to die. He says, I'll go back home. He says, no, you go, but only what I say. That's what you're going to do. And so now Balaam, I believe Balaam at this point has realized this is not going to be like the other times. This is not going to be a normal situation like it has been in the past. And so it's going to be a little bit different. And in verse 36 it says, "Now when Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the border of the Arnon, the border of his territory. Then Balak said to Balaam, Did I not earnestly say to you, send to you calling for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you?" So the king's ticked off. He's like, why'd you take so long? But Balak was in such a hurry, he didn't stay where he could see Israel. He actually went to the border of his country to meet Balaam, to escort him the rest of the way. This is part of the honoring. I'm going to honor you, but I do need to know, why didn't you come? What's the matter with you? I called you. Why didn't you come? And Balaam said to Balak in verse 38, he said, "Look, I have come to you. Now, have I any power at all to say anything?" So he's realized, I'm not able to say anything of myself. I've got to wait to see what God's going to tell me to say. "The word that God puts in my mouth, that I must speak." So Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath-Huzoth. Then Balak offered oxen and sheep, and he sent some to Balaam and to the princes who were with him. What do you think he sent to Balaam? The intros. To read the signs. He sacrificed oxen and sheep, and he sent some to Balaam and the princes who were with him. And in verse 41, it says, "So it was the next day that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal, that from there he might observe the extent." That actually says the furthest extent of the people. They went up on a hill to where they could see the full 1.2 million person camp of Israel. And remember, it's not like what you see on movies where the old camps from ancient times where they're just tents scattered around. No. Remember what we read in the book of Exodus. They are extremely ordered. God is not the author of confusion. He's the author of order. And the camps are perfectly set up. I imagine they could see the tabernacle and the clear lines of the divisions of Israel. And so he brought him up on this high place so he could see the 1.2 million person camp. So many people that say God doesn't hear sinners. They say that unless you're praying the prayer of salvation, God doesn't even hear your prayer. That's not true. God hears it. God knows what you're doing, whether or not you're a Christian. He knows. And he's got his eye on you. These people came to Balaam and said, come curse this people. And God went, I need to talk to him. He's not my child. He doesn't know me, but he's about to find out who I am. And he's about to find out that those people are my people. Dear Lord Jesus, Lord, you are so good. You're amazing in your love for us. Lord, you're willing to deal with the problems that come our way. Lord, we see that in this story that Balaam had power. He had some kind of spiritual power. He was in touch with some kind of demons, Lord. But you are greater than any spiritual force there is. Lord, you are the greatest. Lord, and nothing stands against you. All is nothing compared to you. Lord, and we, as your people Israel, we are your chosen people, Lord. Because we've received you into our hearts, Lord. Your Spirit dwells within us, Lord, and as the New Testament says, greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. It doesn't discount that there are forces in the world, but we have something greater inside of us that compared to what you are, the world is nothing. Because you are amazing. You are the Creator God. Lord, and I pray that we have that confidence and we have that understanding that forces may come against us, things may come and try and destroy us, but it will not come near us. Lord, as your word says, 1,000 will fall at my right hand, 10,000 at my side, but it will not come near me. And that's because you are in me. And you are the one that takes care of us and provides for us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to understand who we are in you. Lord, and as we go throughout our week, Lord, that we would be good witnesses, Lord, everywhere we go and in everything we do and the people we speak with. Lord, protect us and keep us and bring us back safely next week to learn more about you. And I ask everything in Jesus' holy name. Amen.